Everyone, welcome to our podcast channel. So today we are very happy to invite Andrej, the founder and the CEO of Grass Network. So I think recently Grass Network has been one of the super popular and most of the I think it gains most of the attentions in the crypto space. I think especially with the launch of EigenLayer today. So I think everyone has been super excited and waiting for a long time with the Grass Network launch. So yeah, I mean welcome, Andrej.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Sky. Really looking forward to this, and yeah, it's a pleasure to be here.
Awesome. Yeah. So could you share talk about can you share more about what is Grass Network?
Absolutely. So Grass is a network of over 2 million devices at the moment that anyone in the world can join as long as they have an internet connection. And the way it works is you just download something with one click, you make an account, and you're connected to the network. Now you can be asking yourself, what's the point of this? Well, the point of Grass is actually to build an internet scale web crawl. Today, there are only 2 companies in the world that are capable of crawling the internet at that scale. And it's the mission of Grass to not just create an alternative to them, but to actually replace them. And what makes Grass so special is the fact that it can scrape anything from all over the public web very quickly because it's distributed across millions of nodes. And secondly, and this is probably the most important part, is the fact that Grass is run on real residential devices, on real residential networks, meaning that all the data that the Grass nodes are capable of collecting is unblockable and unbiased.
Awesome. But with the data that you collected, or with with activities that users try to participate in, what kind of problem do you try to solve exactly?
Yeah, so I'd say there are 2 problems. And the first one is, in our opinion, the most important one. It's an ethical problem. Uh, for the last 20 years, big companies, and I'm talking Fortune 500 companies, have been paying millions of dollars to middleware providers to sneak software into the things that you download. Things like free screensavers on your Roku TV, things like free VPNs, and sometimes even paid VPNs. And what they end up doing is hijacking your IP address, using your network, scraping data from the internet because they have the advantage of seeing the internet from your point of view, and they don't pay you a penny for that. When we first set out to build this, we were actually exploring a few different options of, okay, how do we build a network that can scrape the internet at scale? And we realized, oh my goodness, the only way to do it is through millions of residential connections. And the only way that people are doing it today is through these unethical means of value extraction, where they're making people their product and not compensating them for it. So, that really ticked us off, and that's what got us working on this in the first place. And then the second problem is one that's almost equally important, and it's one of walled gardens. 3 years ago, 1% of the internet was valuable in terms of the data that it contained. Fast forward to today, it's very easy to make the argument that 100% of everything that shows up on the internet incrementally is very valuable, or it has some sort of value to it. And that data needs to be collected somehow. And companies, especially platforms that host tons of user contributions, they're actually starting to wall this off. I think Reddit's a perfect example of this, where a lot of their users are contributing data to their platform and they're walling it off and making it difficult for third-party APIs to actually access it. So yeah, to summarize, it's 2 problems. One very big ethical one on the consumer side, and another one that is just one of access and the lack of competition on the B2B side.
Awesome. Yeah. I think the ethical one is is really important. And I think a lot of users are not really aware of this issue as well. Yeah. But by the way, since you're competing with Web2 tech giants instead of just Web3 AI companies, right? So how do you think how do you try to win over the market, especially when you try to compete for example Google, right?
Yeah, totally. So one of the big issues with the companies like Google that are crawling the web at scale is the fact that over the last couple of decades, they've cemented these practices of having to rely on SEO and advertising revenue as a crutch. Like their entire web index is built on the premise of monetization through advertising. Now, when you're retrieving data from the internet for an LLM, you don't necessarily want the data with the best advertising power or the data that is the best clickbait. You need the data with the best information. And it's often that the first few links on a Google search, for example, they're optimized for humans to click on, but they're not optimized for machines. And LLMs, it's almost like they need their own search engine. And that's actually something that Grass is building, which we're calling live context retrieval, or LCR for short. And it's probably one of the initiatives that we're the most excited about, because when we release our LCR engine, not only is it more performant than anything else on the market, but according to our early alpha testing right now, it's actually retrieving much more relevant information than any of the existing web index solutions. And we cannot wait to go to market with it.
Awesome. Yeah, I know like a lot of users actually like really proactive to participate in the network right now, and especially with the incentive program that you guys provide. And I think it definitely like offers a pretty like attractive kind of like a monetary incentive to like kind of encourage them, especially to try to like solve the cold start problem, right? So yeah, I mean like on the other side, I just want to know like how do you try to overcome the challenges that most of the Web3 AI projects have been facing, which is the business models and the data monetizations, right? I think a lot of projects, AI projects especially, they try to collect the users' activities or the data, or especially like deepin projects, they collect a lot of users' data, right? But at the end, it's not that easy to like sell the user data or activities to the other like B2B or from the or to the business or like on the B2B side, right? So how are you gonna do it?
Yeah, I mean, it's happening today. The amount of inbound that the Grass Foundation is receiving is off the charts, I think. It's almost as though the network can't grow quickly enough to enable some of the use cases that large enterprises are already asking for. And to your point about incentives and like, the way crypto works today, one of the key pillars of like what Grass is building is making sure that internet incentive structures are being redefined. Like if we're looking at the internet and how it exists today and how it existed yesterday, we're starting to see this interesting evolution where it's becoming more closed. And a lot of the more closedness of the internet is being driven by the growth of AI. And we've been seeing this pattern over time where, from Web 1 to Web 2, we moved from open fields, right? Like URLs that everyone is exploring and like clicking on new websites, to a small number of applications that are being accessed on smartphones. And most of them are social media that link to other places within the social media app. And then from Web 2 to Web 3, a lot of people for the last few years, they've been saying Web 3 is crypto, right? So like the third version of the internet is one where you can own things and it's crypto. And this might be controversial, but I actually disagree with that. I don't think crypto is Web 3. I think AI is Web 3. The third version of the internet is powered by AI. And it's our duty as a collective to make sure that Web 3 is not worse than Web 2, that AI doesn't make the internet even worse than it already is. And it's already on that trajectory. And we have a short window in which we can correct these things. And one of the interesting phenomenons that we've noticed is when Web 2 closed off a lot of the internet, it didn't happen because these companies are necessarily evil. Like a lot of these companies, you look at Google's early mission statements, like they were actually very optimistic. They sound a lot like what a lot of crypto companies are doing today. But they just didn't have the tools to properly build the incentive structures to not extract value from the wrong places. And crypto offers us those tools. And it's our responsibility to make sure that they're built properly. And that's a big part of what Grass is doing. So, to your point about incentive structures, you're right. A lot of projects in the crypto space today, they're focused on, short-term incentives to drive growth in the user base or something like that. For Grass, it's not necessarily about creating incentives, but rather creating the rails for the right types of sustainable incentives over a long period of time. And that's where all of our focus is today.
Yeah, exactly. I think like given like a lot of given like the amount of the crypto projects has been like I think triple or like has been like 10 times more than the previous cycle, right? And I think like a lot of projects right now, the business model is just has been like they haven't find out the best business model. Most of the projects they just keep like selling tokens in order to sustain it. But it's good that like you guys have found a pretty good like business model, have a quite a lot of inbound from the on the business inquiries, and also you guys have like find out the kind of like the best practice or the rule of thumbs of how to find how to balance the token incentive, right? Because I honestly like could you share some tips on like how can projects or how you guys actually find the best balance or equilibrium between how do you incentivize users in the short term, but also not being kind of like overfeeding too much in the long term? Because I mean, I've been really aware of this project with Grass for a long time, and I saw some comments like from the community saying they I mean like they're like everyone's so greedy, right? They want the airdrop to be like to be basically they want the airdrop to allow them to be like financial freedom. I think doesn't make sense, right? To me, honestly, like you just use your free or like idle like bandwidth or idle like laptop to provide some bandwidth services, right? But you shouldn't expect to have like a financial freedom with providing this kind of service like after like a year, right? So I think this kind of mindset is really it's pretty harmful, right? But but I let you talk. Sorry, I let you talk. Yeah.
So yeah, a lot of people are really excited about the first grass airdrop, and that's understandable. One thing that I've been going out and saying within our community is I wouldn't miss the forest for the trees. This first airdrop is going to be the first day of the network. Like the day of airdrop one is day one of grass. And everyone who's been here before, the grass network launches is by definition like very early to it. And like we're beyond grateful for anyone who's ever joined grass or like contributed to it or who will in the future. And a very important part of designing a network is making sure that contributors to the network gain some form of network ownership. And that's going to be a big part of bandwidth monetization, which hasn't even been turned on yet. So, you mentioned a lot of community members, making a really big deal out of the first airdrop. And that's very understandable, given that there's been this really long pattern now of crypto projects being all about this one airdrop where, it happens and then that project, you don't hear about it again 3, 6, 12 months ago. For grass in particular, like airdrop one is just a way of saying, it's a reward for all the early contributors. But in terms of contributions, like nothing's actually started yet. Like airdrop one isn't even the beginning of bandwidth monetization. Like the point of grass is to join the network and actually sell your bandwidth and sell some idle compute resources to these huge companies and AI labs that are using vast quantities of bandwidth to scrape large data sets in real time. And I think a lot of people are going to be pretty surprised when some of those numbers start coming out, honestly, in terms of usage. So I'm really excited for that.
Exactly. I think like most of the crypto projects right now is basically the launch of a token is the end of the project. But I mean I strongly believe like you guys like basically the launch of a token is still like just the beginning of the project because you guys like still have a long way to go, a huge milestone to achieve. And I also like see you guys as a team or as a founder, like you guys have been really consistent to deliver the projects. Could you also like talk more about like the team backgrounds, like what's your background or what apart from you, who else is also like working super hard behind you?
Oh, absolutely. So I'm one of 3 co-founders. And I'll talk about my 2 co-founders because a lot of people have already heard a lot about me on a lot of these things. So I'll start with Chris, our CTO. He is a brilliant coder, first of all, and secondly, has a great mind for architecture design. In a previous life, he was doing high frequency trading, and it was his job to make sure that orders are coming first to market. And we're talking like billions of dollars moving in nanoseconds. And it was his job to beat people with better infrastructure algorithmically. And he was doing that at one of the top market making shops in the world. And it's, when we met and when we started working on this, it was perfect, right? Because Grass relies very heavily on low latency systems, and he's a big reason for why Grass is capable of retrieving anything on the internet in half a second. And what's incredible too is that although he's a CTO, he has a brilliant mind for marketing as well, and for growth and for vision, which has been really cool because the three of us, we can bounce ideas off each other. And then Gordy, the other co-founder, he actually has a background working at a real-time AI company as one of the first employees. He had a lot of experience with our core product, which is like residential proxy networks, because at that company, they were responsible for processing over 50,000 real-time data sources. And they were one of the biggest users of web scraping products. And then after that, he worked at another startup in a growth capacity and managed to grow it from 0 to several 100,000 users with zero cost of acquisition, like with zero marketing budget. And he's been a very, very big reason for why Grass has been able to grow so quickly on the consumer side. So yeah, needless to say, like without my two co-founders, Grass would never exist. And yeah, I think people don't talk about them enough.
Impressive. So I think like with a really solid team, like a venture team, so that's why I think you guys have been doing really well on both the product delivery, community side, but also fundraising side as well, right? So I saw like fundraising announcement from you guys. You guys have got some like pretty solid like investors on the cap table, right? So like, could you share a little bit more as well?
Yeah, we're incredibly grateful for the funds that are backing Grass and who are aligning with the long-term vision. I think it's safe to say that everyone that participated in that Series A round has like the thing they have in common is a sense of first principles thinking and design, and more than grateful for all of them.
Awesome. Yeah, let's switch it to the future, right? So I just want to know more about like so right now we're in the stage of like the incentive program has been done. Like even myself, I've been really active and looking at the pre-market on the wealth on the market on the wealth market as well. So what else should the retail side, what else should like the public users should be aware of? Like anything that they should be like really excited in the coming few months? How can they participate in your network? Like either they should participate in like join your Discord, or like get involved like in your NFT communities, like anything that you think is like aware is worth to mention?
Yeah. I mean, the Discord is 500,000 people strong, and is a really fun place to just come and hang out and talk to other Grass users. There are people from all over the world speaking in like any language that you can think of. It's been, sometimes I'll just drop in there and chat with the community. So, and it's a lot of fun, honestly. Like, I'm so grateful for our community. In terms of things that are coming up from a technological perspective, I mentioned it earlier and I'll mention it again. Live context retrieval is going to change the world. And we're so excited that it's Grass that's building this. And it's just one of those things that needs to exist, right? And we don't want to live in a world where it doesn't exist and where it's not owned and run by users. So yeah, I mean, when shortly after live context retrieval goes live, there will be a demo of it, which is I don't want to share too much, but there will be a way for users to actually interact with it and try it out. So that's something that we're very excited about, and it'll be beta tested across Grass users on the demand side as well, if they want to try it. Another thing that we're pretty excited about is the other forms of distribution. So as everyone's aware, we have like the desktop node. The desktop node is capable of scraping vast amounts of multimodal data today. We've also got Android in the pipeline, iOS shortly after that. And we also have, and I've mentioned this a few times, or at least hinted at it, but there will be a Grass box, like a hardware device. And I'm not going to share too much about the Grass box and its capabilities, but what I can say is
it's like a mining machine, right? It's like a DP, it's like something similar like a DP miner, right?
you can think of it that way, yeah.
Oh wow.
So there are certain capabilities that we realized would really supercharge the Grass network, and for us, it was like, why not? we may as well give people the ability to be power users and contribute in those capacities. So that's why we're working on that.
Crazy. Wow. Like how like what's the current tractions? I mean, like how many users or how many active nodes that have been connected with Grass?
Yeah. So as of today, there are over 2.5 million daily active nodes on the network.
Wow.
It's been incredible to watch the growth of the network over the first year. And what I'm most excited about actually is the use cases that get unlocked as the network grows. It's one of those things where at its current size, the network's actually capable of scraping enough data to train ChatGPT from scratch on a daily basis. And at
I mean, like, do you have like more like concrete examples of like the potential use case of Grass actually? Yeah.
more concrete samples of the potential use case.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you can scrape the entire public web. Like, I mean, ChatGPT was trained on the entire public web, right? So if you want to train ChatGPT from scratch, in theory, you could use Grass to crawl that much information in one day, and then go and get your GPU clusters and go and train that model from scratch. That being said, though, one thing that people are aware of is data, its value drops exponentially over time. Like, it appears on the internet, it's valuable. And then after enough time passes, it becomes free because somebody archived it or someone scraped it and made it available or something like that. And where we see a lot of value accruing, and this is something that we're actually seeing as well on the demand side, is there's a huge need for real-time information. And as far as use cases go, basically any Fortune 500 company that needs to use some sort of AI model needs to supplement that model with real-time information. Otherwise, it's useless to them. Like, any company that's trying to do some kind of supply chain management that needs some sort of web data to supplement that model, if that web data is from 1 week ago, it's useless. They need a network like Grass to plug into so they can go and retrieve that data. If they're an e-commerce company, or not even an e-commerce company, just like a big commerce company, like a Costco, for example, you want to scrape the entirety of every other commerce company on a daily basis to compare your prices. If your data is from 1 hour ago, it might not be that useful. If you're, and I can go on forever. There's like travel aggregators, all the financial use cases I think are pretty obvious. If your data is 1 second too late, and our CTO Chris can attest to this because he worked in this field pretty heavily, it isn't that valuable anymore after the first couple of seconds. So, and the cool thing about Grass is that as the network grows, more of these use cases become enabled. So today, it's capable of crawling these like huge static training data sets. There's ridiculous amounts of training data that are going to be open sourced by Grass, both multimodal and text-based. But as the network grows, like, what's super exciting is that not just on the training side, but more of these real-time use cases get unlocked. And once we reach 50 to 100 million nodes in the network, that's when we estimate the Grass network will be capable of doing an internet scale web crawl and competing with some of those giants on a very, very real level and a very palpable way. And that is something that we just cannot wait for.
Yeah, I think definitely like Grass is gonna be like one of the most potential projects that's actually bringing like Web2 users to the Web3 space. And I think like with this kind of like potential, if you are really bringing like 50 million or 100 million new users to the Web3 space, I think like everyone like even exchanges will like you a lot as well. And crazy, yeah. I mean, I personally like. I'm really excited like to have you here because I personally like a big fan of Grass Network. I mean, like I've been like talking about the Grass Network like in a couple of like months in my Twitter and mentioning about the Grass points, mentioning about the Grass NFTs. So I think it's always. I mean, like it's kind of like a fulfilling my dream, like to have you like as an interview. Yeah, I mean, like, because I'm also like a huge fan of you guys. Yeah, and any last word that you want to share with the with the audience?
Well, first of all, I really appreciate that. It means the world. And for the audience, actually, I have two things to say. So the first one is a lot of our community have been asking me a lot about the NFT,
Oh.
and My answer to them remains the same. It is no utility, just grass. And the other thing, and that's kind of an inside joke for the grass community. So if you guys are watching, huge shout out.
I saw the community basically pin what you said.
Oh yeah.
It's kind of like pinned on the top, right?
Yeah. And,
just grass. Okay.
That's right. Yeah. And then the second thing I actually wanted to mention was, if you're watching this, whoever you are, keep touching grass, and you may as well join grass as you touch grass.
Awesome. I like it. I like it. Amazing. Yeah. I mean, like, I definitely want to invite you again, like next time when when everyone touch the grass, when everyone join your communities, especially when you launch your mobile version and your grass DP box as well. I think it has been really amazing because I see a lot of things that you are going to achieve in the near future, right? Especially I think definitely the launch of the so-called token is just the beginning of the project. So many things you have to achieve in the coming 12 months, 24 months. So I'm really excited to have you here. I'm really excited to bring you again when you have more tractions, when everyone after joining your project, I think everyone would be not really millionaire, but I think everyone would be having a better life. Yeah, better life.
Well, yeah, I'm always happy to come back. So give me a shout and I'll be there, and looking forward to it, man.
Cool. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Andrej. Okay.
Yeah, thanks again. This was fun.
Thank you.